my photo taste is the Pinterest, because they are the best.
Okay, decimate. Destroy or kill a large number. And a bit like carnage.
Yep, it describes, yes, a lot of death. It means to wipe out or kill most of a population, either of people or of animals, in this case, the elephants. So nearly all the elephants, 80%, have been killed. So the population of elephants has been decimated.
It has. Now, this is a word that has, like all words, there is an original meaning which is a bit different.
Yeah.
Or a bit more specific.
I believe from the Latin or Roman times.
That's right, yes, meaning to kill every 10th soldier.
So 1 in every 10 soldiers would be killed.
Yeah.
For what reason would?
To maintain discipline, to make sure that they stayed in line.
Very extreme disciplinary technique.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right. Well, we don't use that now. But from that, this isn't just 10%, is it? This is 80% we're talking about.
So it's come to mean a large number. Killed or not necessarily killed either.
No, again, we can change this to a sort of everyday use of English, and we can talk about just reducing large numbers in a quite sort of brutal or dramatic way. So if you've got a company that decides that it's got to downsize and it's going to get rid of 40% of its staff, you could say that the workforce was decimated.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, so it did have that original meaning of 1 in 10. It's moved on. Language
moves on. Get used to it.
Get used to it.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing stays the same. And this is an example of that in language.
Before we recap, it's time for our Facebook challenge, of course. We've been talking about elephants today, and we have an elephant idiom, which is an elephant in the room. But what does it mean? The options are A, a project which is a waste of money, B, a serious problem people are aware of but don't want to discuss, or C, there's not enough space. So, what kind of response did we get on Facebook?
Got a good response as always. Let's go to Chris Chang, who said, my vague memory tells me it's B. Vivian Wu told us the answer is B. And Arezo Gulistani says, an elephant in the room is an English metaphorical idiom for an obvious problem or risk no one wants to discuss, or condition of groupthink no one wants to challenge. So B is correct, and that's correct. B is the correct answer. Well done, everyone who got that right.
Yes, well done, and it's time now to recap those words we've been looking at.
It is. So we had carnage, the killing of large numbers of people or animals. Poachers, people who catch and kill animals illegally. Decimate, destroy or kill a large number.
If you would like to test yourself on today's vocabulary, there's a quiz you can take on our website at bbclearningenglish.com, and you can find all kinds of other videos and materials to help you improve your English. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
My photo taste is the Pinterest, because they are the best.
From bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English, the show that brings you an interesting topic, authentic listening practice, and 6 items of incredibly useful vocabulary. I'm Dan.
And I'm Neil. Now, a favourite topic today, food, and how food could influence your mood. Dan, tell me, what food makes you happy?
Oh, you know, ice cream, chocolate. Chocolate always puts a smile on my face.
And a few inches around your waistline. Sadly, the research we'll be looking at today doesn't suggest you eat more chocolate, but it does talk about bacteria.
Bacteria? Those simple small organisms. They make me happy?
Absolutely. The so-called good bacteria do. We'll get to that, but first we'll look at today's question. How many bacteria are there in the human body? Is it A, 39 million, B, 39 billion, or C, 39 trillion?
They are pretty small. I'm going to go for C, 39 trillion.
Well, we'll find out if you're right by counting them one by one.
That's going to take longer than 6 minutes.
Yes, it is, so let's get moving. Scientists believe your mental state is connected to the bacteria in your gut.
My gut, my stomach, and the other organs my food passes through.
Yes, researchers at McMaster University in Canada and University College Cork in Ireland have found that certain bacteria help produce anxiety in mice.
Anxiety, the state of being worried or anxious. I don't like the sound of an anxious mouse.
Well, I'm afraid there's another mouse experiment coming up. Researchers at Kyushu University found germ-free mice showed more stress.
Germs, a general word for bacteria and microorganisms, usually the ones which cause disease. So germs help reduce stress and anxiety in mice. Any research on humans?
The BBC TV programme Trust Me, I'm a Doctor has just explored this. They looked at foods which are high in good bacteria, a claim which more and more food products are making these days.
Yes, it's a phrase that appears a lot in marketing.
But many traditional foods are high in good bacteria as well. They found that homemade fermented food was best.
So things like miso soup, kimchi, yogurt, sauerkraut, all these are fermented. Have you tried all of those?
I love miso soup and kimchi. And fermentation is the process where sugars in food are turned into acids and alcohol.
Fermented foods are full of lots of good bacteria for your gut. Anything else from the BBC programme?
Well, this is the man behind the BBC study, Dr. Michael Mosley. In this clip, a radio presenter asks him about the best kind of food to make us happy.
What's the good mood food? What shall we eat now to cheer ourselves up?
Mediterranean diet. Olive oil, oily fish full of omega-3, which is really good for the brain, whole grains, fruit, vegetables, sugar, terrible for you.
Not chocolate eclairs, then?
Sadly not. That will
Dark
make you feel
chocolate.
good.
Dark.
Feel good for about 30 seconds until you finish it, then you feel terribly, terribly guilty.
Right, okay, Mediterranean it is.
He said the best kind of food is the Mediterranean diet. Now, a diet can mean an eating plan designed to help you lose weight.
But that's not what it means here. Here it refers to the food and drink eaten by a group of people. In this case, the people living around the Mediterranean Sea.
Lots of oily fish, olive oil, grains, fruits, and vegetables. And of course, add in plenty of fermented food too.
And don't eat too many fatty, sugary, chocolatey things like chocolate eclairs. Those buns filled with cream and covered in chocolate. It's really not rocket science, is it?
Eating healthily is pretty straightforward, even if the science behind it is complex. When you say something is not rocket science, you mean it's not difficult to understand.
Now, are you ready for some counting?
Ah, yes, you wanted me to count all the bacteria in my body. I said 39 trillion.
And you were right. Woohoo! The number goes up and down, but on average, we're thought to have around 39 trillion bacterial cells in the body, according to the Weizmann Institute in Israel. The interesting thing is they think that there are only 30 trillion human cells in the body.
So there's more bacteria than human in me.
Well, maybe just you, Dan. Now, before the bacteria take over completely, let's look over today's words one more time.
Gut was first. It means the stomach and other organs which digest our food. But here's an extra tip. The word can also mean bravery when used in the plural. You've got guts, Neil, wearing that crazy shirt in this office.
Well, thank you. Maybe I don't feel any anxiety about how I look. Anxiety was our second word, and it means fear or worry. The adjective is anxious.
You know what makes me anxious? Germs. I wash my hands 50 times a day. I can't stand the idea of getting ill from all the germs around here.
Yes, germs are tiny organisms. The word usually refers to those which carry disease. But as we heard, certain germs are good for you.
Especially those which are in fermented food. That's food which has gone through a process where sugars turn into acids and alcohol. They often taste sour or bitter.
We also talk about fermenting alcoholic drinks. Beer and wine are fermented.
Does that mean I should make them a part of my diet? A diet not only means a healthy eating plan, but can also mean the foods and drinks consumed by an individual or group. Which country has the best diet, Neil?
Well, in my opinion, the Japanese diet. It's my favourite anyway. Very varied and plenty of fermented food.
And finally we had it's not rocket science. It's simple to understand. An example?
Brewing beer isn't rocket science. You just need hops, yeast, and patience.
And there we are, a rocket speed review of today's words. And that's the end of today's 6-Minute English. Please join us again soon.
And we are on social media too. Make sure to visit us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Flick to link, a link to flick.
I'd like you to imagine the world anew. I'd like to show you some maps which have been drawn by Ben Hennig of the planet in a way that most of you will never have seen the planet depicted before. Here's an image that you're very familiar with. I'm old enough that I was actually born before we saw this image. Apparently some of my first words were Moona Moona, but I think that's my mum having a particular fantasy about what her baby boy could see on a flickering black and white TV screen. It's only been a few centuries since most of us thought of our planet as spherical. When we first saw these images in the 1960s, the world was changing at an incredible rate. In my own little discipline of human geography, a cartographer called Waldo Tobler was drawing new maps of the planet, and these maps have now spread, and I'm going to show you one of them now. This map is a map of the world, but it's a map which looks to you a little bit strange. It's a map in which we've stretched places so that those areas which contain many people are drawn larger, and those areas like the Sahara and the Himalayas in which there are few people have been shrunk away. Everybody on the planet is given an equal amount of space. The cities are shown shining bright. The lines are showing you submarine cables and trade routes. And there's one particular line that goes from the Chinese port of Dalian through past Singapore, through the Suez Canal, through the Mediterranean and round to Rotterdam. And it's showing you the route of what was the world's largest ship just a year ago. A ship which was taking so many containers of goods that when they were unloaded, if the lorries had all gone in convoy, they would have been 100 kilometres long. This is how our world is now connected. This is the quantity of stuff we are now moving around the world just on one ship, on one voyage in 5 weeks. We've lived in cities for a very long time, but most of us didn't live in cities. This is Chattelhoolig, one of the world's first cities. At its peak, 9,000 years ago, people had to walk over the roofs of others' houses to get to their home. If you look carefully at the map of the city, you'll see it has no streets, because streets are something we invented. The world changes, it changes by trial and error. We work out slowly and gradually how to live in better ways. And the world has changed incredibly quickly most recently. It's only within the last 6, 7 or 8 generations that we have actually realised that we are a species. It's only within the last few decades that a map like this could be drawn. Again, the underlying map is the map of world population. But over it, you're seeing arrows showing how we spread out of Africa, with dates showing you where we think we arrived at particular times. I have to redraw this map every few months because somebody makes the discovery that a particular date was wrong. We are learning about ourselves at an incredible speed. And we're changing. A lot of change is gradual. It's accretion. We don't notice the change because we only have short lives, 70, 80, if you're lucky, 90 years. This graph is showing you the annual rate of population growth in the world. It was very low until around about 1850. And then the rate of population growth began to rise, so that around the time I was born, when we first saw those images from the moon of our planet, our global population was growing at 2% a year. If it had carried on growing at 2% a year for just another couple of centuries, the entire planet would be covered with a seething mass of human bodies all touching each other. And people were scared. They were scared of population growth and what they called the population bomb in 1968. But then if you look at the end of the graph, the growth began to slow. For a decade, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, and in this decade even faster, our population growth is slowing. Our planet is stabilizing. We're heading towards 9, 10 or 11 billion people by the end of the century. Within that change, you can see tumult. You can see the Second World War. You can see the pandemic in 1918 from influenza. You can see the Great Chinese Famine. These are the events we tend to concentrate on. We tend to concentrate on the terrible events in the news. We don't tend to
Flick to link,
concentrate on
a link
the
to flip.
gradual change.
My pot of taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Okay, decimate. Destroy or kill a large number.